Welcome to the second week of Red Dress Special, a Native American Heritage Month Virtual Speaker Series. My name is Miriam Mosqueda. I am here as a guest on occupied Muwekma Ohlone land in San Jose. I work at the Indian Health Center of Santa Clara Valley as the job developer and coordinator of the Instilling Wellness through Workforce Development program within Counseling Prevention Services at our Family Resource Center. For Native American Heritage Month, we are highlighting the incredible work being done by Native women and femmes in our community with weekly conversation style panels every Monday in November from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We've intentionally titled the speaker series Red Dress Special in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirit loved ones to raise awareness about the disproportionate numbers of the disappearances and the lives taken that have gone underreported or unreported. So at the beginning of these sessions, we'll be opening up with a song and dance offered by our community members. So I'm going to go ahead and open up with that. We had our song and dance offered by Lakota Holder and Mike Andrews, who are both community members and also part of our team here at IHC, with Mike being our supervisor for counseling prevention services. So thank you both very much, Mike and Lakota, for helping us out with this. So before we get into our conversation, a reminder for our community, please use the chat feature to send in your thoughts, affirmations, or your questions throughout, either through the questions can be sent either through the chat or through the Q&A feature. You all should be able to see a Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. So if you all have any questions that you have throughout, feel free to use those features or the chat feature, and I'll be monitoring them throughout. So this week is Teaching a Generation with Ruby Carino and Crystal Madril. And we're here to talk about their experiences and their insights navigating culture and educational spaces as teachers, among many other loving and powerful words that they bring forward as reflections of their work. A little bit about them. Ruby Carino is an urban native, born and raised in San Jose. She is Jicarilla Apache on her father's side and Filipino on her mother's side. As a graduate of Independence High School, she left her mark as an active member of the Native American Student Union and the Senior Athlete of the Year. She also earned honorable mention for the California Indian Education Conference Student of the Year, and she earned a scholarship in the East Side Teachers Project at Santa Clara University. She has earned a BS in mathematics and a teaching credential. She was also a member of the NCAA Division One soccer team. Currently, she teaches at Shibuya Middle School in San Jose. And Crystal Madril is also a Hickory Apache and Filipino. She grew up in San Jose and is a Southern traditional style powwow dancer. Crystal attended Independence High School's teaching academy, and she earned her bachelor's degree from UC Davis. Then went on to earn her teaching credential and master's degree from San Jose State. She has worked as a teacher in San Jose for over 20 years. So please join me in welcoming Ruby and Crystal. So feel free to send some affirmations in the chat, everyone, and welcome both of you. Thank you both so much for being willing to join us in this conversation. So maybe just to get started, could you both each just introduce yourselves, however you would like to, in your own words, in whichever order, whoever would like to go first, you both are welcome to decide.
Go ahead, Crystal.
It's the alphabetical order.
Right. So, and my name is Crystal Madrill. I grew up here in the Bay Area. Again, we're both obviously both we have those things in common, but born in San Jose, we're Filipino, we're Hickory Apache. I'm honored to be asked to participate in this forum this evening, and just excited to kind of share some of the work that we get to do in our community, both obviously as Native people, as women, as educators. So again, thank you for putting this on, for holding this space, and for inviting us here this evening.
All right, and I'm Ruby Carino. She gave a pretty thorough bio at the beginning. I'm not sure what else to say, but yes, thank you for having us. I am very excited to share what we're doing in the community.
Thank you both so much. Thank you. Okay, so maybe the first good intro question would be, what inspired you both to pursue careers in education? Like, was there maybe like a memory or something, that kind of sparked that interest for you both?
So I'd probably say my inspiration comes from a combination of a lot of things. We were very lucky to be in a community of just some really outstanding teachers who always invited us to bring our powwow dancing into the school. Like from our elementary years, they would invite us every year during that Thanksgiving week. We would come in, we would dance, we'd do a performance with my dad singing. We would bring in some other relatives and stuff. And so they just really embraced us. Although most of my teachers were Caucasian, not all, but they just embraced us and made us feel so special. We, like I said, we would perform every year, and moving into high school, we continued to do it through multicultural assemblies and things like that. But my sister was a big inspiration as well. She always knew she was going to be a teacher. I did not always know I was going to be a teacher, but she would always play school with me, things like that. She ended up going to the teaching academy magnet program at Independence High School, and I followed her there. And then there we got, it was kind of neat because in the magnet program, you actually get to go into the schools and teach. And I still remember one of my lessons we did at the elementary schools. We planted a tree with we read the Lorax. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that book, the Lorax. We read that book, we planted a tree, and the kids started like singing happy birthday to the tree. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, this is where I want to be. This is so awesome. And there was a brand new scholarship that opened up at Santa Clara University called Eastside Future Teachers Project. And it was specifically for students who want to be a teacher and go back into Eastside San Jose and teach. And I'm like, yeah, this is written for me. And so I got to be one of the first in that class to do that. So that was pretty cool. But when I knew I wanted to teach, didn't know what I wanted to teach exactly. And I think one of my big inspirations was the movie Stand and Deliver from the late 80s. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this movie, but this is one of my favorite movies. And it was inspired by a teacher named Jaime Escalante who taught in LA. And he taught these kids calculus. They went on to pass the AP test. People accused them of cheating. They came back, took the test again. They had to reinstate the scores. And I show this movie every year to my students. Like I can almost say every single line verbatim because I show it. I have 5 classes. And when you show your movies to the classes, you watch it back to back to back. So that one was a big one. And one year we had like a dinner for like this a dinner for science, and I don't exactly know, for minorities and things. And Jaime Escalante came and spoke at the actual event. And to this day, I have the program from that event with his autograph on it, which I kind of just came across it just more recently, maybe a year or 2 ago. So I put it up in my classroom and I was like so happy when I found it. I was like, oh my goodness, I kind of forgot about this memory. But that movie, just that one really hit me.
I agree. Our elementary school is always a place where we could just share who we were. And they invited not only us, but our family, and we were always a part of that. I'm lucky today that I get to still be involved with that school. It's actually where I first started my public school teaching career. And my daughter goes there now. And so I'm still in touch with a lot of the teachers and get to work with them. But yeah, that was a great beginning. And as Ruby said, a lot of the teachers there were still Caucasian. I remember I was thinking about it, and my first teacher, person of color, that was my teacher, was not until I was in 5th grade. But again, they were always encouraging us to be who we were. In 5th grade and 6th grade, our teachers, we always had buddies, a buddy system. And I really got into like just reading these storybooks, these picture books to the younger kids. And then pretty soon the teachers started telling me, wow, you read it with such great expression. Like those kids loved it. And I could see it in their faces too. And that was just kind of, that's the catch for me. So when Ruby's saying like, I like to play school, I did. I wanted to be a teacher. I loved reading to other kids that were younger than me. I loved being around them. I loved the energy that I got back in that interaction. And also even as like a teenager, as I was growing up around the powwow circle, oftentimes, yeah, I would still try to gather the younger children because I wanted to teach them something. I didn't know what I was teaching them. I just wanted to play school some more. So that was kind of where I was. And so obviously, yes, when I got into 8th grade, this new program opened up, the magnet program at Independence High School, the Teaching Academy. So it was going to be the first class of it. I wasn't sure if it was even going to happen. The summer before, my dad, he would call and just make sure that was still happening for me, because I didn't want to go to the high school I was supposed to go to, because I was already sold on this program. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be in this program. And as a high school student, we were so lucky that we had these wonderful teachers who just brought us into every space to teach. Like the California Academy, the Hall of Science, or what, they would bring us in that front section. If you went into this museum, we would be sharing and doing some lessons there in all the spaces. Even in homeschooling situations, they drove me to a place where all these homeschoolers had come together, and we would teach and do a lot of lessons around science there. But again, those interactions were fantastic. And then they would bring us to conferences and say, okay, come on, students, we want to show everyone what we're doing. And it wasn't me who led this exercise, but again, this was another great moment because these were adults in front of us. And another student, he started our program by making it rain inside of that room. Like we all started with rubbing our hands together, and then pretty soon like the raindrops, and then you heard the clamoring and the thunder, and all of these, and all of us as students, that's what we were sharing, like our passion to make like the impossible happen in that place or inside of a space. And so yeah, that's kind of that's what brought me here to teaching. And so yes, I went on to do my undergrad at UC Davis, and I got my credential, started teaching kindergarten, and now I'm in the middle school. But generally, I just love teaching.
so interesting too, because to think about, I mean, Ruby, you had, shared that you teach math, and something that that could be difficult to bring into that space is like culture, right? But you gave that example of the movie Stand and Deliver, with Jaime bringing in, because I remember he had in that movie had shared like the concept of zero, and like bringing in like culture into that space. And even just you both as offering dance in those spaces and getting the opportunities to be teachers, even from a very young age, that's so beautiful. And I can only imagine like also how much like confidence I think that like fuels um, for you both to like now be kind of like front and center in that teaching role presently. It's so beautiful. How do you feel that you both have been able to incorporate culture into your classrooms, or has there been openings for that to happen within your respective subjects?
So for me, again, I am a math teacher, and it is a little harder to bring it in. But yes, I'll just kind of bring in fun facts to start the day, things like that. We don't get too deep into things because I do have to follow like my math standards. But you have a good memory. Yes, Jaime Escalante, he brought up the fact that the Mayans were the first to discover the concept of zero. So that like is like so stuck ingrained in my brain that I always share that with my students as well. Or just their base 20 of counting. I'll bring up some things, but really it's a process. I'm still learning what all the cultures had to offer. I don't Yeah, so it's more like fun facts and things that I bring up, but Crystal teaches history, so she can get into it a little deeper.
So I'm gonna just, again, like I said, I love this area of education because I have taught preschool, I've taught the elementary school K through second grade, and currently like sixth through eighth. But I love just in the early education being able to introduce students like their fresh minds, like they love just learning about everyone and everybody, and they don't have any set notions already. They don't have a whole lot of bias yet. So I enjoy just bringing everything to the table and that sharing there. Um, Currently in the 6th to 8th grade setting, I teach. I've been teaching the last few years world history, and through that, I really enjoy taking a look at those civilizations and really thinking about and pushing my students. Like I kind of start in some of them might think in a strange place in the book. I don't start from page 1. And it's because I want to look at the people that are in this textbook. If we're going to use this textbook, I want to start with the people closest to where we are, the closest to what we have as our culture, like not necessarily me, but my students as well. So the civilizations in our textbook that are covered mostly in the Americas, because again, in 4th grade, right, they're learning about state history, but some of the civilizations for 7th grade look at the Maya, the Inca, the Aztec. And as we start to look at those areas where they are, that they're closer to us than looking at medieval times in Europe, my students start to get excited about learning those pieces, and we get to look at how did these people live. And sometimes the students too, I remember they it always brings up a lot more conversation than if I start with Europe, because it's so far away and they don't know it. But sometimes they'll say, well, I know that my family was from this area. How do I know if I am this? And I encourage them. I know some of them maybe don't have access to a long history of elders in their homes, but we just talk it through and how they might find out some information, and maybe just reminding them to open up that conversation with their family first, or whoever's in their household, and working from there. So I know what I'm saying is kind of their personal histories rather than culture ultimately, but again, it's what I have to share. It's what comes from that textbook. And then I'm always really open about myself, my students see. Like we bring things, of course, to multicultural, with Indigenous People Day. I do some team teaching, and we pull some readings around that to bring in and just to share with our students. I'm really excited about a project we're planning now around monuments. So just having those talks about who's being represented through certain monuments, and maybe offering an idea for a future monument. So I'm really excited about that. And I love, again, this is the work that I love.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I'm wondering too, maybe like as an extension of that question, like how do you had mentioned that, for teaching youth and like young folks, the little ones especially, like how you said that they don't have that bias yet. How do your current students, um, how do they respond to everything that they're learning? Because I'm imagining, for a lot of us, it had taken us like years within the system of education before we had like our first, POC educator. So I imagine, in these spaces, it might be, the first time that they also have a native educator. So how do they kind of like react to the information that you bring forward in those spaces?
Like I've been at this school for a while now, 14 years, I think. Um, how do they react? I don't know that I see necessarily reaction. What I do notice is that families who might identify as Native, like those parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles, when they come to the school with a student, whether or not they're in my classes, they come and check in and say hello to me. Or like if I see them at a powwow, like you'll see the student too, like nudge that auntie or something, like, oh, that's a teacher at my school. And because generally I'm going to say, like, if I when I taught kindergarten, if those kids see me at a store, they come up and running and saying hello. Middle schoolers not so much, but they will kind of say like, that's a teacher and I know she's this. Or so then it just opens up dialogue. And I think that helps all of us, because right, it helps me as an educator get to know our student population, and individual students. It helps bring more people to our school. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm thinking too of, if you both are kind of, even just like your existence within a classroom is already like a challenge to, the erasure of a lot of, Native folks within education. And thinking about that, because it tends to happen a lot within education, is like different Native folks just aren't even at the forefront of a thought, especially within, subjects like social studies or history, where Indigenous folks, Native folks are just described in like this very short amount of times. And, that really bleeds into like the rest of society, even thinking about, the current CNN exit poll regarding the election, where Natives were labeled as like quote unquote something else. Um, so within your respective classrooms, how do you both challenge something like that, even if it comes up maybe in small ways? Because sometimes students also maybe may not know certain things, and they could say particular things that may be offensive or maybe contributing to like the erasure of Native peoples. Talking about folks in the past tense, and or even staff, or things like that. How do you all challenge the erasure of Native people within your respective classrooms?
Again, I think the big one is by being there, by being in the classroom, by being a teacher in the classroom. If anybody that's here today or anyone listening to this is interested in doing that, like I encourage you to do it, because I do think that that's like the bottom line. Like I'm doing some work around, like, I don't know, about equity in committees through the school system, but I honestly, number one is always going to be inclusivity. So in my classroom, right, my students, we know that we can share different ideas, different perspectives, and I try to bring that regularly into the classroom. um, I just think it would be wonderful to have more diversity in the teacher pool, so that students are getting a lot of that. And that's what I think would be the best thing that we can do there. But again, presence, I think, is number one. Number two is really looking at the curriculum and seeing where I can bring in sometimes guests people who are working in different jobs, who are, again, who carry different perspectives, and who can come to the class, talk to my students, so they know that, yeah, that there's, we exist. Again, because I do think just representation matters. It's important, and that's what I want to work toward.
So for me, we do clubs on campus. So I help promote a lot of the cultural clubs in general. Everyone knows, so students can run their own club. They just always have to find a teacher who will be their advisor. So I know a couple of years ago, we had a girl, they are on her mom's side, she's Native Hawaiian. And when someone asks, like, or I think she asked the teacher, you know, oh, who should I ask to be an advisor? Everyone knows anything dealing with like cultural dance or anything like that, they all come to me. So she came to me because I help run, so something we had at Independence High School that meant a lot to us is our Multicultural Assembly. It was this huge assembly, the whole school in the gym, and we would perform every year our Native dance. And so that was so special to us, I think, at the high school level, that I brought it into our middle school. So we do have our big Multicultural Assembly. And so I've done work with, so I have a space for any cultures who want to come together and put together dances. And it's getting really big. It's getting very popular and big. And on my Filipino side, I've also done some performing, like the tinikling dance is a very popular one with the sticks. And so I've had groups of students where I've taught them the dance. And then usually we don't have we don't have natives. So I just bring my own kids in to the assembly many times. I drag them in and they'll perform for the school as well. So just giving a space for all the cultures and stuff on my campus. Yeah.
That's so interesting too, and it's really beautiful that you had mentioned even connecting, like, with your Filipino side too, through, culture. How have you both, kind of separate from education, I suppose, but kind of connected as well? How have you both connected, like, both sides of your families, and, have there been parallels too within, like, those parts of your identities?
I would say parallels. I definitely, from a young age, like I grew up going to powwows. As I grew older, I had a lot of my Filipino cousins around more. So I don't know about parallels, but we just, it's fun to learn about our culture, both all of this. This is, again, what makes up who I am. I got to take a trip to the Philippines after I graduated from high school, and that was with my mom, and just meet all of our family there and learn about things there. So I don't know about, again, about parallels. When I went off to college after Independence High School, I went to UC Davis, and culture was a big selling point for me there. I mean, they have a Native student community, a Native American Studies department. So when I was still in high school, we were going there for their powwow regularly, and I thought, okay, well, I can come to this campus, I can be part of this community, I can continue to practice some of my cultural ways on campus with other people like myself. And they, of course, had a large Filipino community too. So between like the Asian Pacific Culture Week and Native American Culture Week, my springtime, usually on the campus, was extremely busy. But otherwise, I just feel like, yeah, this is just who we are and who, yeah, I am. Sometimes we'll kid, like, I'll kid, my sister will have to pull me more to learn more, one way or the other, just depending on where I am in life, I guess. Like, don't forget these ways, like, right, this is part of us too. So yeah, it's just not parallel. It's just kind of an interesting path because it's who we are, and then living where we do, there's just a lot there.
So for me, I see a lot of parallels with kind of like our community, with like our kind of like so over just 2 weekends ago, I went with my mom. We went for All Saints Day, which is right before Day of the Dead, basically, for our Filipino side. And it was really neat to see a lot. We're surrounded by a lot of Mexicans, or all these different cultures, and just all celebrating. Just to watch the different ways they all are celebrating with their dead. It just feels so like you belong, like we all belong. We're all related. You know what I mean? It feels so good. I'm like, yeah, I might be Filipino, you're something else, but hey, we all respect our ancestors. And so that was a neat experience just the other weekend. So that just popped into my head since it just happened.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, we had last week too. We had our session. It was on Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, and I was thinking about the many cultures too that celebrate our ancestors in a lot of different ways. So that's really beautiful. I was wondering too, like how you both kind of, or what is it that you kind of incorporate into your classrooms when days like quote unquote Columbus Day or Thanksgiving, come around. Yeah, is there any way that you all kind of go about having particular conversations on that day, or is there curriculum that you all kind of formulate a certain way for those days?
So I am going to say I am very lucky to work with a team of people at my school again that works really hard. We do project-based learning. We're a new tech network school, and this is my first year to teach 8th grade, which is American history. And going into that this year, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting because in general, um, these are some of those pieces of history that could be triggering almost, even to have to go through and think about how I'm going to teach this, how I'm going to present it to my students. But with some of our past projects at our school, done even by teachers before me, our students get a lot of education on Indigenous people, on the different perspectives, I guess, around Columbus Day, around Indigenous People Day, around mascots, around AIM and the occupation of Alcatraz. A couple of years ago, all of our 8th graders went on a field trip out to Alcatraz as they were learning about that. So I feel that there's just a lot of opportunity. So we think about these projects and where we lay them into our school year helps really, I think, form that foundation and helps guide those conversations. Of course, when the students have questions, or we have these, I'm open to conversation always. We just have conversations, I want to say. And a lot of that dialogue is opened up by these projects that have already been put into place. So, right, if these students, even when they're in 8th grade, once they've completed that project, they're presenting it to the rest of the school community. So I remember a couple years ago, the first time they did that, they had invited different speakers in, and the students all chose like which topic around Native American people that they wanted to study. And then they made their backboard. So one was all about mascots, and one was about, I'm sure one was about water rights, one was about just giving you a lot of information so you can walk through. So I walked through with my 7th graders at the time, and they could have these conversations with each other. And again, I think in our district, honestly, like we don't have a Columbus Day holiday on our books, on our calendar. So it doesn't come up that way. I think I've been grateful for that happening sort of with Thanksgiving as well, because we're not in school those days leading up to it. But again, those conversations are happening naturally as we're building this curriculum, as we're sharing this information, as these things are coming up. So then it becomes less uncomfortable, at least less uncomfortable during those times, I guess.
And I teach 8th grade math, but this year, since we've gone online, there's been a push for this social emotional connection with students. And so we have something new this year that we haven't had in previous years. And it's kind of like a homeroom where it's pretty open, where we get to talk about almost anything we want to talk about. So again, yeah, we also do not get Columbus Day off or anything like that. So yeah, I started a conversation with them, and this social emotional learning little connection piece we have this year, we're finding that it's really nice. Like, everyone really needs it this year. There's so much going on out there. Everyone needs to express themselves. And so I got to share a lot on Indigenous Peoples Day. I was sharing all my photos from powwows and this and that. And I was having a good time. I was like, oh my gosh, we need this more often. Like, this is really nice. And and then there's kids that come up and say, I think I'm part Cherokee. I was like, yeah, go research, go find out more, see what you can learn about your culture. And so that's exciting for me. It's like, it's a new piece this year. I hope they continue with this social emotional learning, but more than ever right now, since we're all so distanced, the students need this connection. And so I found out that it's actually helped me as well, having the what they call SEL learning.
Yeah, that's like a perfect segue into the next question too. Thinking about, how because of COVID and everything has shifted into distance learning, how have you each navigated that and entering into all of these like digital spaces? And I just hear all these stories about Google Classroom and like all this stuff. So how have you each navigated that? And Ruby, you just shared a highlight of that. Have there been other highlights or challenges that you both have faced as, adjusting to this shift?
I think the spring was absolutely a crazy adjustment. In this space current, or even through the spring, I guess, what I find that some students are enjoying having this space where they can really concentrate. I know that some of my students, it's difficult because they're in homes with a lot of people, and the other people might be working, the other people might be also going to school. So I know that it's challenging for them. But one of the highlights, I think, are kind of the conversations we do get to have with the students. I think all the schools are doing that SEL in the morning. I really do enjoy that time. And some of my students, as we came to conference, it's not exactly a class. It's just kind of time for them to come in, check in. But some of them in the chat a couple of weeks ago, as we were winding down the quarter, we were talking about what are your favorite classes? What have they been? What have the teachers done there that you've enjoyed, so that maybe we could share that with other teachers and let them know, and maybe they can do more of that with distance learning. But they typed in, oh, this is my favorite class because we get to just talk and it's fun, and we get to just do fun things. And I think that's been really great to have that opportunity just to connect with the students that way. I think that in school, that's what I really miss about the in-person learning, because those things would happen like in passing. You're going to talk to students at lunch. Some of them just come to your classroom or come in and check on you. And last spring, we didn't have a lot of that. Last spring, it was hard really to reach some of them. Like some of them almost, it seemed like they disappeared after April. I'm like, I need to find this student. But with this, I'm appreciating that time. I really I really enjoyed that some of the students are super comfortable just kind of being around their home. In our school, we're a one-to-one school with iPads, and so it's pretty mobile around their home. So one morning, or sometimes students are still making breakfast. They're making breakfast or having breakfast, and somebody was messaging me like, hey, I'm making pancakes. Would you like some pancakes? It's private messaging like as we're going. So it was okay. But that's what I really appreciate. It's just like some of the students are really comfortable and opening up, or if they need that, I don't know, they're feeling really comfortable to do that, because I don't think that in the middle of a classroom, they would tell me about their breakfast, or that they would tell me some of these things. But I do feel like I'm still able to build some of those relationships. For others, of course, it's become more challenging that way. Yes, I do hope we get back to in-person learning soon as well. So
the spring was pretty crazy for me as well. It was like you were inundated with all these programs. Oh, use this, use this, use this. Like they were just throwing everything at us. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do or where to begin, you know. It was a tough transition in the spring. In the spring, I think I didn't even give any tests at that point. I'm like, these people are already stressed enough. Kids are already stressed enough. There's no need to test. I can't even tell if they're cheating or not. You know, it's a math test. And so I had the summer to reflect like over my teaching and things like that, and things have gotten better. And yes, that homeroom class, we had a survey and all the students, hands down, that's their favorite class. There is no grade for that class. And they still show up, because I remember at the beginning of the year, I'm like, they're going to find out there's no grade here and they're just going to stop showing. Like, why show up? But it makes me feel so good to see that, oh, they're still showing up. They like to talk to me, you know. We do have some topics, and we do like chair yoga. We do mindfulness. We do breathing exercises. So we do things like that, and they like it. And some of those students really need it. And I've seen students who have told me at the beginning of the year that I have anxiety issues. My camera's not going to be on, you know, and they're slow. They're turning around and they're doing better. And I try to start each class with music every day. I have a different song. And so they pop on and they'll get excited. Like, oh my God, it's my favorite song. I think I played BTS for them the other day. Like, and what did I play? I love Black Eyed Peas. That, what is that? The love song. I've played that for them a few times. They love it when they come on and they hear what the song is and stuff. So those pieces are fun.
That's so beautiful to hear too, because there's so many students right now that are having a lot of challenges to just even with like mental health in relation to like this really big adjustment. So it's really beautiful to hear that you both are incorporating just very loving ways to welcome them into this into the virtual space. So that's so awesome. Have you all had to kind of face any challenges with that? And just kind of, you know, over the months I've been hearing that some teachers were feeling a lot of pressure from maybe like admin or folks, you know, higher up that were maybe like pushing a narrative that online learning should look a particular way. And so then, you know, challenging that was met with a little bit of tension, or, you know, things that needed to be worked out. Did you all find yourselves kind of meeting any sort of challenges in that way?
There are a lot of challenges with that, as far as I think about being responsive to our students, being responsive to teachers and other staff that are involved in this, because in the spring, again, it was a big adjustment. Now that we've finished the first quarter, like I know for my own self, I'm taking kind of inventory on how that first quarter went, because that was pretty well planned. We did, right? Like I had a plan, not like in the spring where it was just kind of like, let's go. But we were looking at our projects that we've done in the past, how we could modify those for the online learning, but not, we do block schedules at my school, and not seeing them every day, or not seeing them as long every day. Obviously, we didn't move through our curriculum at the pace, obviously not at our regular pace. I'm going to say not even at the pace we had maybe set forth in the beginning of the quarter. And so I'm just hoping, or when I'm having conversations, whether it's with my principal or others too, it's around that. It's around how we can make sure that we're not asking too much of anybody or overtaxing anybody, and definitely making sure, again, that of course we're all safe and we're all cared for, and so that we can keep moving forward as far as our learning and keep moving our students just forward in their education, and most importantly for me, keeping them engaged. Like Ruby had said, like they come back to that part where they're engaged, they're having fun. If they're not feeling that in their academic courses, I start to worry as well. So we want to keep them engaged so that, again, we can all keep moving forward together.
For me, I kind of got into this rhythm, and then Crystal knows too, the county comes down and gives us more paperwork to fill out. This engagement tracker thing now, making sure that our kids are engaged, tracking a whole nother way. And it just frustrates me when we get things thrown at us like this, more paperwork, when I want to spend my energy on my lesson, to, my lesson planning, my time with the kids. And now I've got more paperwork on my desk to fill out. So I was pretty upset when the county came down with this new thing we have to track. I just wish sometimes they would trust us and allow us to do our job without all that paperwork business. Yeah.
A lot of that was echoed also with so many teaching circles too, was that this just even thinking about the correlation between that and like standardized testing, how that's like something that it's like, oh well, students have to kind of show this particular type of skills or knowledge at this particular age for them to be considered up to par, quote unquote. So it's so interesting that it's like seeing that kind of translated into this current space. Very interesting. Thank you both for those reflections. We're nearing the end of the conversation portion of it. I do have a few more questions. So if folks who are here have any questions that you all want to go ahead and start typing either in the chat, or you can use the Q&A feature, you can go ahead and do that, and we'll get to it when we reach the Q&A part of the session. So thinking about all of the work that you both do, why do you both feel that this work is important, being Native educators, for you personally and then for the community as a whole?
As far as why this is important to me personally is because this is a space that, one, I enjoy. Number two, I really, again, I'm going to go back to this probably on the other side as well, but that representation. I guess I didn't even think about it that much, right? When I was younger and I was like, oh, I love this. I love this interaction. I love how this is happening. But obviously, as I've grown older, I understand, again, the importance of that. I wish I had more educators that look like me. I do feel like when we went to Independence High School, there was, again, like Ruby said, there was a Native American student group on campus, and we had Native educators who worked in East Side in our district who really brought a lot for us. And they brought a lot, again, my sister and I have benefited from a lot of that work. So for me to be part of the education system at this point, that's what I need to do. For our community, again, I think that's what opens doors for all of us, so we can all walk through them together. I think about not only what I'm doing at my school, not only what I'm doing in my classroom. My daughter's 7, and my niece and nephew going through our schools too. I just feel like I'm always keeping an eye out for, every year since my daughter started school, my husband and I will make an appointment early on in the year to talk to the teacher to, again, find out what they're doing when it's Indigenous Peoples Day, find out what they're doing around Thanksgiving, to find out what's happening there, because I want to be part of that conversation. It's important. And for me as an educator, I have that background too, that I can offer something to help make that work. So it's good for my daughter to represent her culture. It's good for her classmates who may look different than her, for her to be able to share that with them as well. So again, I think all the way around, it's that representation, it's that diversity, it's all of us working together to have that respect and that interdependence, really.
For me, we've been having more district meetings online, and we have these Zoom meetings, and we have this Brady Bunch group of faces, and I think the first time our district got together, and I scrolled through, and I was like, oh my gosh, I did not realize how many like Caucasian women we have in this district, because we hardly ever get together as an entire district. And I was just like, wow, I just didn't know, because we never got together as a full district with all our schools. And so like Crystal mentioned, just that representation matters. I know that my work with the Multicultural Assembly that I bring to the school really matters to them. We do awards at the end of the year, and I started an award for I had like 2 kids that were super active with the Multicultural Assembly, and I applicate a little is it called stool for both these girls, and presented it to them at the end of the year. And my native Hawaiian girl was just floored. Her parents were just like, oh my goodness, you made this, and like, wow, like how special of you to honor our child. They invited me over to their house for her graduation party, and we still keep in touch with that family to this day. But it matters, and I could see it.
Well, thank you both. So what do you, I mean, you both kind of tied this into your responses already, but maybe as an extension of that, what do you both dream or hope that this work will lead to in our community, or for our community?
I'm going to go ahead with, again, this idea of inclusivity. I know the state is doing a lot of work around ethnic studies. My district has started to form a committee to look at ethnic studies curriculum for our students. I want to be part of that work. But one step further, again, it's kind of what that thing that I had stated earlier about, it would be so wonderful to have more diversity in the teaching pool, because as we teach, again, I think that's what's going to matter the most. We can train somebody to teach these ethnic studies or these lessons through the grade levels, but again, if the students aren't seeing these people practicing these things, or however, living the way that they live in a different way than maybe the students themselves have seen and experienced in the past, I don't know. I think that's the one step that makes it more powerful. That's what I hope. Like in the future, this is what I'm looking for, because as much as I am excited to do some work around that ethnic studies, I don't want to just say, oh, teachers have this another layer of things to cover, another layer of things to do. And some teachers, maybe not even all of them, are seeing it that way, but I just don't know if that's the best way to think about it, to do it, to teach it. So again, I think it's a great start. I'm hoping that as we grow from there, yes, we just become a more, like the educational system becomes more inclusive. We're sharing, again, all of these practices, these ideas, and we have such a diverse group of people who are teaching our youth as they come up, and we're all advancing because of it. Because I think that diversity in thought is going to be the most powerful thing, and can just carry all of us well into the future.
Working in math, kind of going down to another one of my quotes from Jaime Escalante. He tells the students that they already have like 2 strikes against them. I believe he says the complexion of their skin and their surname. And he says, and math is the great equalizer. And so that quote means so much to me. It's so strong. And so I just like to be like, we're in the Bay Area, and the kids, they'll always joke about, oh, the Asians are good at math. The Asians are good at math, you know. They're always throwing around stereotypes and stuff. So just to be that person, to be the math teacher, like, you're the math teacher, like, yeah. Just to have that representation in the math and science field, I think is important.
So we'll transition into the Q&A session. I see we have, if you all have any questions, you could either put them in the chat, or you can use the Q&A feature. Also, if you have any affirmations, feel free to type them in. So we did have an affirmation come in from from an attendee that said, I just want to say that you two are amazing role models, and I look up to you both as loving and caring mothers. You inspire me in so many ways. Your kindness is exactly what our youth need in the classroom and in the community. Um, Beautiful. And a question, would you encourage our youth to explore careers in education?
I absolutely would. I think that the field of education has so much to offer. Like if you as a youth are thinking about when you go to college and you really want to study again, maybe Native American studies, as even that, like honestly, when I went to undergrad, I did human development at UC Davis because it's the early childhood equivalent to um, the way that I could get my credential because I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So I focused on that. I took the Native American studies classes as I could, but now in the space where I am, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should have just majored in that. Um, but then I love education because it's not too late. Like I can get a few more classes in. I can move over into that space. Again, like I said, I started for myself. I started as a kindergarten teacher when I went into I taught preschool while I was going to school, while I was getting my bachelor's degree. I taught kinder. I've moved, like I said, into this middle school space. And I love the different age groups, but within education, like you could be a teacher, you can be a reading specialist, you can teach a single subject or multiple subjects. Um, you don't even have to teach in a school or not in a traditional school. Especially in what Ruby said about just being in the Bay Area, there's so much diversity of people. There are so much diversity even in businesses, and a lot of big businesses often are looking for educators as well to teach within their companies. So there's just a lot of opportunity there. But if you wanted to be a classroom teacher and ever anybody wanted to talk to me more about that, again, that's what my hope is for people who are interested to not, because maybe you see that there's a lot of work to get there. I remember feeling that already because, like I said, I knew I wanted to be there. So it's like, oh, I got to get my bachelor's degree. Oh, I need to pass these tests. Oh, I need to get the credential. So there are a lot of steps there, but definitely it's once you're in education, there's just a lot of space, a lot of opportunities. You, as a teacher, day to day, you'll never have a dull day either.
I definitely like waking up and going to my job every day. I can't complain. I know there's other people, mumble and grumble about waking up and going to their job. But I would encourage you to like start by working with, younger kids, be a youth group leader or sign up to do tutoring, things like that. So you could kind of experiment with it early, see if it's something you like. I don't think it's for everyone, but I would say, that's why I kind of did the teaching academy. I wasn't sure if I wanted to teach, but after getting some experience and getting my feet wet, I said, yeah, this is for me. Yeah.
Thank you both. Thank you for that question. So we have another question from a parent. What is the best way to have your eighth grader more focused with her school instead of all of this virus news? I already took away the news, but while I'm at work, she's online searching and it makes her have anxiety.
I think for a lot of us parents and maybe all ages of children as well, I encourage time away from screens. I just feel like it's a requirement for school. We all understand that we're all in this space, but really encouraging time away from screens. As an eighth grader, I don't, maybe finding books that she loves to read, something different. Maybe the student is an artist. But again, finding things that we can even put out just to say, look, I have this. When you're not in school, you have an opportunity to take some time and create. That's I think that would be great, just to be able to create. I don't know if Ruby, if you have something to add to that.
This is a tough one. I have my own sixth grader, and I just walked in today while the teacher's explaining it was a math class too. She's explaining adding positive and negative numbers, and she has another window open on her screen. I'm like, what are you doing? Close that window. She's like playing some video game with cars on the side, and I can't always be behind her, but so I have my own issues with my daughter. It is hard because they're learning school through the screen, and they know all the other things that it can bring as well. I know there's students on the other side when I'm teaching also looking at some other window, and it's tough. For my kids, one of the only things that's normal for them is they still get to go to soccer practice. I think we're lucky because soccer is an outdoor sport and they continue with that. And that's the one thing that's like saving us right now, is just getting them out for soccer practice. Before soccer practice, we were always doing bike rides. It was family bike rides every night, family bike ride. That was nice. And before soccer, the weekends were for hikes, just kind of getting out there with nature. But that's tough. I'm struggling too.
Which is an extension of that question too. How do you both navigate? We're in a pandemic, and you all have been thrown like this really big task of shifting everything online, and we had kind of talked about it earlier. But how do you all kind of navigate that for yourselves, like on a personal, and also mental health level too? And having to not only you have your own families, but students become like this other type of family as well within a classroom. So yeah, how have you both also been able to navigate all of that space?
It's tough. Because I do know I spend a lot more time to grade papers, just to open every single document. And then the more time I spend with my student children, then my own children get less time. And it tears me up sometimes. So, sometimes I just got to put the work, let it kind of build. I'll get behind on work so I can spend time with my kids. But it is a constant struggle. And like I said, we're doing the social emotional learning with our students. We do the chair yoga, the breathing. And so even though they think I'm trying to help them, it's helping me a lot. It's helping me a lot when we do the social emotional learning. Yeah, it's tough. And I have my Apple Watch where, it kind of tracks your standing hours. And it's like, gosh, when I was in the classroom, I was standing all the time. I was always in every single, everyone's groups. I was constantly, circling the room. My stand would close every single time. And it's just hard because I'm just sitting at the computer for hours. And I'm like, how do these people do these computer jobs? I have no clue. I'm like, how do you sit there and look at a computer all day? I don't get it. So yeah, I'm still trying to find the balance with my family.
Like when this started in the spring, a lot of people started to bring a lot of curriculum materials and ideas free for teachers. All of these things were available. And at first I was excited, oh, free thing, free, I'm a teacher. Oh, this sounds great. Click, there's a Zoom training. Oh, let me go to that. I could learn all of these things. And I kept thinking about upping my learning. But obviously at some point, and I think this happened for a lot of people, right? I mean, I think that's one of the good things, right? There's a lot out there that we can learn, that we can access, that maybe we didn't have time for before because of travel time to get somewhere or to make those arrangements. But yeah, at some point it's okay, I'm at a point now where I'm really careful about the things. I'm trying to be more careful about the things that I sign up for. Because again, yes, I have time with my daughter and I don't want to sacrifice that time. That's very important to me. And during our school day, I kind of enjoy the part that we're both in the house together. I enjoy that. But our schedules are even off. Even our lunch times are not at the same time. So I'm having to prepare, or my husband will prepare something before he leaves. It's this really strange juggling act that's going on. And so we can't, it's a difficult space to manage. And yes, we're always still figuring it out. It's funny because as we came to the end of the first quarter, I was like, I feel like at least I'm getting in a little bit of a routine, which is really nice. But there's still a lot to juggle, still a lot to figure out. And I'm looking at this other thing about, as far as for parents, like in this last week, I was thinking about my daughter, and she has basically then a lot of free time in the house, kind of on her own while I'm teaching and when she's not synchronously with her teacher. So it's just, there's some things that I do have to just let go. And and again, if I focus on time that we don't need to be on computers, we're trying to go outdoors. We're playing tetherball. We bought a tetherball. We're just trying to do other things.
Kind of ties into the next question. Do you have a message for parents during these times of distant learning, and even being parents yourself? Yeah, any message for parents, or even affirmations for yourself about navigating this?
And I would just say, make sure to give yourself just that time and that space if you need it. I know it's so challenging to attend to your own work as well as your children while being all in that same space. It's such a challenge, but I do think it's just important to remember that a lot of us are in this situation. So maybe if you want to call someone and talk about it, because I know I do that. It just feels better to talk it through a little bit. And then just again, we just have to let go of some things sometimes. Some of the rules, we might have to bend them a little more. The bedtime, maybe it's a little, I don't know, just to make sure you get out there, move those legs, something. Maybe take a jog around the block, something just to kind of get tired out and just take those breaks as needed. I think that's absolutely important.
It's tough. I mean, this is the first generation to go through this. And it's like I've worked so hard all my life to have my kids not play video games. I hate video games so much. And it's just kind of gone down the drain. This Among Us game, I don't know if any other kids out there are playing this Among Us game, but it's all the rage and my kids are all over it. And yeah, you just have to let some things go. That's all I have.
So another question, what is the hardest part of teaching?
I think that for me, the hardest part of teaching are those things that, again, when I was in 5th grade and 6th grade reading books to children, those things that I never thought of then. That paperwork, especially right now, like that Ruby mentioned, that extra paperwork. I really, in going from having to teach in this space and figuring out how to do that and still trying to figure out how to connect with students in this way, that's just another layer that I don't need as a teacher, I feel. So I've felt myself since the spring, or especially since the school started again for the fall, in my head on those really tough days when I'm feeling inundated with the paperwork, inundated with the grading, with the reports, with the required communications with whoever. In my mind, I have to tell myself, mine is to teach. Again, mine is to teach. And that's, again, the part that I love. So when I think about that, and that's how I will prioritize my work. And those other things, they'll be there. But mine is to teach. That's what motivates me. That's what inspires me. That's what's going to keep me in this profession. So those other things, the paperwork, I think, honestly, I do think that is the hardest part. Just to try to keep up with things that are not about the lessons, are not about those relationships with students. Sometimes even that might be other people, other adults, or other people that are becoming involved. Yeah, I think that's sometimes the hardest part.
For me, especially for math and stuff, with they have us take these benchmark tests to say, students should be here at this point in time, here at this point in time. It's like we're not we're not creating machines here. We're in the business of people, and everyone's different. We can't lay down these standards and expect everybody to meet these standards. I have, this student who just arrived from this country. I have this student whose dad just passed away last weekend. You're in the business of people, and I don't feel like you can gauge them with these standards like businesses do. And so that's the hard part for me is I hate those days. I'm like, oh, benchmark test. Let's see how your kids are doing. It's just like, we're all human here. We're all going to make it at the end. Just, I don't like, it's a disruption to my teaching. I feel like I could teach them more if I didn't always have to do all this testing.
Thank you both so much. So we're nearing the last 10 minutes or so of our time together. If you all have any last minute questions or affirmations that you would like to go ahead and type in the chat, you're free to do so. I did have one more question that I'm asking all of the panelists to kind of like, get their perspectives on it, and just to be able to share, their thoughts and their love with the community. What advice or loving words would you like to share to our youth?
I'm gonna go. I know I keep going back to Jaime Escalante, but he was big on ganas. Ganas is desire, just your desire. Do what's in your heart. Do what you want to do. A lot of our SEL work in the past few weeks was all about finding our students' interest and harnessing that interest and road mapping it into a career one day. And I know a lot of my students, a lot of their parents think they already know what their kid is going to be when they're an adult, but it's just, find your interest and run with it and go with that. Ganas, your desire.
Thinking about similarly, we all have our own path. We all have our own way to get to wherever it is we might be going or however it is we're traveling. But as far as advice, I really think that when opportunities are put before you, I think take them. Any opportunity, say yes. Try something. Try again. Try teaching. Try again, just volunteering maybe with a youth group, maybe just one time. Just if the opportunities exist and they're presented to you, to maybe job shadow someone, take it. Just try it out.
Thank you. So if there isn't any more questions, it's okay if we end a little bit early. I do want to encourage everyone who's here to maybe send some love in the chat, maybe like a word of gratitude for Ruby and Crystal for being here with us today. So go ahead and type in your word, and I'll read it. I'll read it out loud to everyone. So thank you both so much for being here with us today. We appreciate you. If you all got a chance to check out the flyer as well, there's these illustrations of both of them. So I'm so glad that you all, sent over the pictures and, trusted this creation of you both. So it's a gift from us to you all to see you both reflected in all of this beauty and for the flyer. So next week we will be welcoming Teresa Castellanos and Anacita Agustines for multiple front lines. And we have 2 more sessions after that for the Red Dress Special, Native Creatives with Carino Lawrence and Whitney Lewis, and Handset Heal with Maria Ramos, and other special guests as well that work within traditional birthing ways. So we're super excited to continue the conversation. And Ruby and Crystal, thank you both so much for being here with us today. We appreciate it. We appreciate your time and just all of the love and the knowledge and the memories and storytelling that you all shared with us today. We appreciate you both. So an affirmation came in the chat. That was a wonderful presentation, and thank you for working to build our next generation of leaders. Yes, thank you so much. Another affirmation, thank you for teaching and bringing so much passion and perspective to our students. Thank you so much. So if there's any last minute affirmations, go ahead and continue to share them in the chat.
yeah, we're just super thankful. I'm very thankful, and I was sharing with them that this idea kind of sprung up in an email with me and Ruby, and it turned into like, oh, let's do a panel, and then expanded into a whole month of panels when we're having those conversations with everyone. So shout out to Ruby for for planting that seed too. It's appreciated. So yeah, with that, that concludes our session for Teaching a Generation with Ruby Carino and Crystal Madril. If you all have any last minute, goodbye words for everyone who's here, yeah, you're welcome.
Just thank you again. Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right, you all. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we will see you all next week for multiple front lines.